There, you want to watch it with him, Lenny?
He's the magic man, he could do anything.
Fire that gun in his face, he'll just catch the bullets in his teeth, I've seen him.
Yes, well, let's not get carried away here. I mean, we don't want to waste the guy's ammunition.
Welcome to episode 28 of the Jonathan Creek podcast, where one of us is the magic man and the other is catching all sorts of things in our teeth.
That's a fair description of this afternoon's activities, Gerry.
Ectoplasm.
Nothing like a bit of ectoplasm to make you want a bath.
Mm-hmm. How are you?
I am sticky, Gerry. How are you today?
Just had a bath.
Andy, my turn.
Ooh.
Did you leave the water in?
Let's move on. Part 2 of The Grinning Man.
Yes, I don't think we need too much introduction given that we've just covered it in the previous episode.
Yeah, perhaps you can remind the listeners where we left off.
Yeah, there was a note found and Elodie was missing in the backstage area of the theatre.
Yeah. Okay, that's where we'll pick it up then. Do you have a summary for us?
I thought it was important, yes.
Crack on.
Jonathan and Joey's concerns treble in the second half of The Grinning Man. Not content with Mina's disappearance, they now face up to Elodie's apparent kidnapping and a remarkable video that contradicts the evidence of their own eyes. When Joey gets herself into trouble searching for new evidence, can Jonathan help her identify the true villains? Or will all these crimes be consigned to history?
We're back at Metropolis.
In the lounge area.
The gang gather, where Gessler reveals the note to be that of a ransom demand for £100,000.
I've got an autocorrect issue here. I've got Lance is reading the random note.
Same sort of thing.
Yeah.
I like the fact that I think the demand says £100,000 in cash. What else are you going to £100,000?
Bitcoin.
And there's a threat of death if they don't pay up, obviously. Glenn wants to call the police eventually.
Finally, someone's mentioned the police.
Yeah, we did mention that last week, didn't we? The ridiculous situation where they've been pretty casual about Mina not being there.
It was all a bit strange.
But Constance says the money can be arranged and that they have no other choice but to cough up. You can't put a price on a life.
She also says the police are too trigger happy.
No, they're not. Well, they might be, but they're not renowned for, in hostage situations, shooting people.
I don't think she meant literally trigger happy. I think she meant maybe jumping to conclusions or jumping in and causing bad things to happen.
Okay.
Lance urges a bit of caution at this stage. How do we know, or how do they know, that the kidnappers will be honourable and keep up their end of the bargain?
Well, I think in all of these situations, by their very nature, kidnappers aren't honourable people. You just have to take a chance.
Or refuse to negotiate with terrorists.
That's another way.
A lie that governments have been telling for decades.
So they decide to pay up. And we're at the crossroads where they've been summoned to the next day at 12 p.m. Gessler, Jonathan, Constance and Joey are all in the car, apart from Glenn. Now that's a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, he's not there. What's going on?
Why is he not there?
And then...
And that's the other thing. You don't go on it's not a Jolly Boys outing. You don't all turn up for a ransom drop-off.
No.
Generally that you're told as well, come alone. But in any case, why would you all go there? Why would you invite the local magician's assistant and the local magician's assistant's assistant with you?
Who can say? Well, Constance has brought Jonathan in on the whole thing to start with, so maybe she's requested his presence. And Joy just doesn't go away.
I think it's risky. You don't want to annoy the hostage holder.
Well, as long as they're abiding by the terms of the note, they should be safe.
Okay.
And Elodie should be alive.
She should be, yeah. What do they do with the cash?
They put it as instructed in the arm of a old city sitting at the side of the road.
They then wait, as they had been told, at another location for a van to hopefully return Elodie. But becoming impatient, Gessler gets out, followed by Joey. And this leaves Jonathan alone with Constance.
Yeah, I didn't quite pick up on where she was coming from here. What's been said to make her think this is what Jonathan's thinking?
You need to explain.
Okay, so she says that if you won't say it, I will. My father must have been a murdering anti-Semite responsible directly or indirectly for the deaths of 8 people, which is what Jonathan's thinking based on the paperwork and his conversation with Joey.
Yep.
But Constance wasn't in that conversation.
No, I think we maybe have to assume that they've since had a chat and she's been brought up to speed herself. And
But they haven't made this assertion to her directly.
No.
They've just talked generally around the information that they've looked at. Okay.
I mean, I think it's maybe one of these things, it's a guilty conscience. If she, over the years, has suspected this, she may think that everyone thinks that as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
She asks Jonathan anyway what evidence he has, and he gives the tried and true response of nothing that will hold up in court.
Yeah. She does, however, admit to being more confused with life the older she gets, and mentions something that stood out from the initial disappearance all those years ago.
Of course, I've had plenty of time to reflect on what happened that day, what I remember of it, but one thing that's always lodged in my mind, and you wonder, I suppose, eventually whether you just imagined it, but as they were all standing there, chattering away, trying to make sense of it all, he bent down and picked up what looked like a small pebble or stone from the floor and put it in his pocket in a very private way, as if, I mean, he obviously thought no one had noticed. Did that make him a killer? You tell me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a killer.
Mm-hmm.
Next week on the...
We catch up with the Gessler, who is talking to Joey in a field beside the car, and after wondering how he got to this point in his life and describing how he met Elodie in the first place, they see a car speeding towards the money. However, it doesn't go according to plan or to their hopes.
No, the money is collected and then the driver just leaves. There's no sign of Elodie. There was a strange part just before they see this car where Joey starts talking and Lance starts finishing her sentences, giving away one of his tricks, I think, where you identify common
Endings?
something like that.
Okay. We head over to Candy's place.
Yeah, she is getting to know Adam a little bit better.
After making his eyes water with her onions, he is shocked when a young Eastern European man appears from upstairs, half-dressed.
Yeah, he affectionately embraces Candy and then doesn't take too kindly to Adam's attempts to break that up.
No, we heard at the top of the podcast the Candy trying to deflate the situation.
Yes.
As a gun is shoved in Adam's face.
You know, these Eastern Europeans, they all walk around carrying guns,
It's all like taking, isn't it?
stealing our jobs and taking our benefits. Anyway, yeah, he calls Adam a great useless sack of shit and says that if he upsets Candy, he'll break his legs.
Seems fair enough. Adam probably deserves his legs to be broken. It's, you know, the things he's been up to over the years.
I don't know about leg breaking.
Yeah, he's been pretty dodgy.
Anyway, Candy makes a reference to somebody else joining them,
Yes, I think it's Jonathan and Nicola.
who we find getting ready over at Nicola's place.
Yep, as she warns Jonathan to relax and put any of Joey's mysteries out of his head.
I think warn's the right word. She's dictating to him that that's not what's happening tonight. You're not thinking about that. We're doing something else and you're thinking about us.
Mm-hmm. He notices her magazine articles, the quiz I think, scattered over the floor before he receives a call from Joey herself. Where is she?
She's outside the theatre where Lance has been performing, watching Glenn and Lance load up the truck.
Yes, with props that have to be taken to the storage warehouse, which she thinks has a secret hiding place written all over it.
Yes, it's somewhere in the East End, therefore dodgy.
And under the disapproving glare of Nicola, Jonathan has to refuse the invite to join her. So she takes it upon herself to do what?
Well, she's obviously a bit annoyed about this, but she runs over and hides in the truck with the props.
Obvious question is, why did she not just follow in her car?
Yeah, maybe she thought she'd be clocked.
Maybe, but I'd rather have followed than stick myself in the back of a van that you're not sure. I mean, they might have left that in the yard.
Yeah, and it might not have had anywhere to hide. Could have easily been exposed.
I think and just started emptying it. One person stands in the back of the truck and passes out the parcels to the other, and you're getting caught straight away. Yeah. It's a stupid idea.
It's impulsive and risky. Chancy, you might say.
You might. We're at the warehouse now, and when they arrive, she is able, fortunately enough, to sneak into the warehouse as Gessler and Glenn finish unloading.
She's wearing magic shoes, did you notice that?
Like Dorothy's.
Well, sometimes they make a noise and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I like a bit of Foley work, but I did think to myself, I think in fact I've noted a little bit later, why did she not take her shoes off?
Yeah.
Anyway, back over at Candy's house.
Well, I thought before you go back to Candy's house, I had one note on that scene. Lance is obviously at the warehouse already. It's interesting to note Lance and Glenn just talking business as usual, as if there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
When Elodie's still obviously missing, and it's just a business-like conversation about their work.
In this entire episode, part 1 and 2, everyone is very casual about people who have disappeared.
Yeah, nobody seems to fret about it at all.
No, the police should now be involved again.
Yeah.
Anyway, over at Candy's house, Jonathan and Nicola do arrive, and with the two ladies in another room, Adam boasts about how he has fooled Candy into thinking that he actually has magic powers. Now again, this is more evidence of his leg break worthy attitude.
Perhaps. I think Jonathan correctly points out it's a very short-term approach.
Yeah. How long can you keep it up for? However, they are interrupted by a very loud pop.
They are. I would like to know if this is what actually, or if this is something that's actually possible.
It is. I don't think the pop.
Yeah, I don't think the pop's what I'm thinking of.
No,
because there's no air.
No, it's silicon or whatever it is these days. It's a gel-like substance. It's not a couple of balloons.
Comedic device.
I would say so.
I'm furious about. No.
What happens?
One of the implants on Candy has rapidly deflated, and she's going to have to go and see her plastic surgeon in the morning.
Yeah, she's very relaxed about the whole thing. I think she says it has happened before and simply offers some bread rolls.
Yeah, I don't think she considers herself to have been deceiving anybody. I think
no, of course not.
She really felt it was quite obvious that she had implants.
Yes.
We'll come back to that point.
We will. Back to the warehouse. Glenn leaves, but worryingly for Joey, Gessler remains and puts on a pair of murderer gloves.
Yes, he walks through the warehouse, and this is where Joey trails him, making a lot of noise.
That's what I've noted. Take off your very noisy heels.
Yeah. They weren't noisy when she ran into the warehouse, but they're noisy now.
What does she witness when she follows?
A horrific murder.
Well, I'm not sure if it is a horrific murder at this point.
Well, some kind of murder.
Not necessarily.
It's something horrific.
Maybe.
Okay. Well, you could see it was a thing.
Yes.
She saw something.
What did she see?
Elodie is tied up by her wrists from a chain hanging from the roof, looking very uncomfortable. And Lance draws a blade across her throat, spilling blood.
Yes. But things get worse for Joey, as we see that he is following her.
Well, he thinks he hears something.
Yeah, her heels, obviously.
Probably. But she's running off and hiding in a trunk, and he apparently just stops looking.
Yeah. Back over to Candy's place.
Well, no, before that, you see her on her phone.
You do.
She's going to send a text to Jonathan.
She is. So at the dinner party, everyone except the now devastated Adam seems to be having a nice enough time when Jonathan goes to take his phone in another room.
Yeah, this is weird. He gets a text message and leaves the room to read it.
Yeah, I've got here changed days. I mean, these days it's terrible. Everyone has their phone out on the table.
Yeah, you wouldn't leave the table for a text message.
No.
I don't even know if you would have then.
You really, in polite company, you should have on silent at a dinner party.
Yeah, you didn't have that.
No.
Adam also excuses himself.
Yes, who with zero self-awareness complains to Jonathan about Candy misleading him with regards to her natural assets before Jonathan apologises to everyone and heads off.
Yeah, I think he also needs Nicola to come with him because she's his chauffeur for the evening.
Yeah, has he been drinking? Is that what it is?
He doesn't drive.
Ah, you're right. Well,
it's a well-established point of the show.
Well, no, he did once in an emergency.
Yes, he did, but not effectively.
Back over to the warehouse. With Nicola driving Jonathan, as you said, he picks the lock to enter and opens the chest to a very ungrateful Joey, who complains about having to wait for 2 hours.
She's not happy.
I mean, it must be that he's 2 hours away, because he left immediately.
It seemed to be immediate, didn't it?
Yeah.
But maybe it took him some time to persuade Nicola between telling her they had to go and her agreeing to actually go.
That should have been shown then, because there is that tension already.
Yeah. It would make a lot of sense if that had been shown.
Mm-hmm. But I think Jonathan, if he realises the peril that she's in, would simply have called a cab or...
Yeah, he would have tried to get there quickly.
Yeah.
Joey leads them through to where she saw the murder take place, and Jonathan spots a bit of blood on the floor.
Yeah, below the rope. Before walking over to the corner of the room and finding what looks like...
Elodie.
A body covered in bubble wrap. And after uncovering it, they find her with her neck slit, as we apparently saw.
Yes, and Nicola, being a trained nurse, checks her pulse and confirms that she is sadly passed away.
Out in the car.
Finally, someone calls the police.
Yes.
Then they wait.
They do. But there is a twist here.
Yeah, because when the police arrive a bit later on, the body's not there anymore.
It's the dummy that we had seen previously.
Yeah, but that point isn't really taken up in the rest of the episode.
No, it's not, is it?
Yeah, it could have been the body just as easily.
So is there a secondary way in and out of...
Oh, no, I suppose it's kind of taken up insofar as there's no body and that's why they can't charge him with the crime.
Yeah, sure.
But the mannequin being there,
no,
they don't take that. They don't try and say that they didn't see a body.
These lockups, warehouses, tend to have one main door in and out. So how did Gessler perform this switch?
He's a magician.
Yeah, but how did he perform the switch?
He might have put the body in the trunk or something.
No, he had to get in and out himself. They were sitting outside.
You don't know that he's left.
In that situation, the place gets cordoned off. It's a murder scene. No, it's not actually.
No, so all they've got is a dummy.
Not happy with that.
I mean, he obviously was waiting somewhere while they were looking at the body in the first place.
Yeah. Anyway, back outside Metropolis.
I think the next morning.
We see Gessler being led away in cuffs by the police as Jonathan and Joey watch on, before she has her say about how it was obviously a setup and probably to cover for a real murder.
Why were they there? Why are Jonathan and Joey at the house?
To confront Gessler. Well, Constance has brought Jonathan in, so...
Maybe it's just a matter of course they're heading out there in the morning, but they know or believe that Lance is now a killer.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why they're sitting outside. They want to see,
See what happens.
See what happens, yeah. Perhaps they'll see him and follow him.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Maybe they got a wee tip-off from the police.
Possibly.
You see Lance kind of cast a glance over at his mother as he's put in the car, and Joey tells Jonathan how upset she is to realise that he was in the building the whole time that she was in the trunk.
Yeah. They then see Glenn, and at this, Jonathan asks Joey if she has not worked out what they were doing in the church, as a flashback reveals that they were in fact...
Yeah, they were getting married?
Mm-hmm.
That seems a bizarre step to me.
Well, I think that after Glenn knocked back Mina and realised how much he loved Elodie, they decided to act upon...
But surely the step would be getting together publicly or becoming engaged.
Perhaps they didn't trust Gessler enough. They wanted to just do it and so there's no argument, no doubt about it, no debate. We're now married. It's over between us and
where did the witnesses come from?
Friends.
Of who?
Either of them. Invited them round to witness that. It's a little later as Glenn explains his version of events.
Of all the mistakes that I've made in my life, I'm not sure that I'll ever come to terms with this one. That I underestimated Lance Gessler, what he was capable of.
Am I right in thinking you and Elodie?
The two of them, God knows when all of that began to lose its luster, but what was weird was it took this whole thing with Mina to bring it home to us. How serious we were about each other.
No, you're right, you're absolutely right.
It was like the way was clear now to make a life for ourselves.
I just can't take it anymore.
Then, of course, when she told him, that was it.
Everything, it's suffocating me.
She was giving him 3 weeks' notice.
The thing is, for some
She was out of his act, out of his life.
I mean, you'll find a way to cope somehow, won't you? You always do.
And when all this kidnap stuff happened, I mean, what else am I going to think? Because that is how clever he was. I just thought if I said anything at that stage, I don't know, I might have compromised her safety.
Well, I don't know about you, but when I end a relationship, I always make sure to work my full 3 weeks' notice.
Okay, so I'm going to help you with the disappearing act. I'll do the housework and perform bedroom duties as contractually obliged.
But only for these 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yes.
And I've got holidays to take.
3 weeks notice. There you go. Anyway, as Glenn rants some more, Joey notices that Jonathan is staring at a ladder.
Well, he's not really staring at a ladder. She's staring at a ladder.
What's he staring at?
A hypotenuse.
Before noting a mark on the window.
Yeah, he doesn't explain this whole hypotenuse thing. I think we're meant to just take it as a clever thing.
Yeah, it's all sort of angles, isn't it, of where the bird should be compared to where they hit and things. I don't know. Anyway, Glenn confirms that the mark was made by a bird, the third one that week. And at this, Joey says that they need to take radical action. And do what?
Well, she's a wee bit snarky, I think, at this point. She suggests or insists that they spend the night together in the attic room if Jonathan can bear to be around her. I don't know why she's... Is this still because he wouldn't come to the theatre?
Don't know. Anyway, that's where we are. Later that night, Joey puts her suggestion to Constance, who doesn't have a problem with it, but does say that with regards to the warehouse, what you see and what you think you see aren't always the same. And she hopes that everything will turn out to be a mistake or a misunderstanding.
Oh, you can understand that. It's
Yeah,
her
you
son
wouldn't
who's
like to
being
think
accused.
that your son's a throat slitterer.
Yes, not to mention her father also being a throat slitterer.
Yeah. So up in the attic, they are in for the night, and Joey puts on a brave face before Jonathan mentions Mina, removes his trousers and pulls back the sheets.
I think Joey thinks he's being a bit forward. She doesn't back away or anything.
No.
He explains himself very quickly.
Yeah, well, he's saying if we're going to do this, we have to do it as normal guests would, i.e. get ready for bed and go for a sleep.
Yeah. Before they can settle into bed, Jonathan notices something. I think he spotted it earlier as well when he visited the attic.
Yeah, I mean, I think what he does is he puts some pressure on the mattress
Yeah.
pre-entry into the bed, just to see how firm it is. And what happens?
A series of dead flies are released from a canopy overhead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any particular fear or phobia about spiders or creepy
Yeah,
crawlies.
that would be the end of it.
But when dead flies are falling on you, lots of them, I would not be sleeping underneath that.
No.
This is disgusting. It could fall in your mouth, anything.
Yeah, and the whole thing could come down.
Yeah.
Imagine how many flies are up there.
Joey then joins him on the bed and asks about the significance of the Grinning Man. And he says that he thinks it has played a sinister part over the years. Not really, has it?
No, it hasn't, and that doesn't mean anything.
No.
It's a painting, it doesn't do anything.
The tension is broken.
Yeah, phone call.
Video call, to be precise.
Yeah, another one of these shaky, but somehow still very clear picture video calls from Alec.
Yeah, I think Jonathan refers to him as the annoying Max Headroom.
Yeah, he also asks Joey if she's ever seen this person in the flesh. It's interesting that he's always got a comment about everybody else's relationship, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think it says more about him than maybe he realises.
Yeah, maybe he should try keeping these things to himself. Anyway.
With regards to the room, Jonathan says that there is no doubt that, is it Fortelli or Fortel?
Futrell, I think.
Futrell, yeah, him had set up a trap to perpetuate superstition and keep him in business.
And also kill Mencken.
Well, that as well. He admits that he got a glimmer of a solution that afternoon, but nothing more. A little marble rolled around.
Later in the night, Joey wakes with a start.
Yeah, she screams in panic. Why?
Because Jonathan's not there.
No,
He's been disappeared.
taking a dump.
Or something.
And this causes her, the relief I think, causes her to have a panic attack. And a eureka moment.
Yes. Perhaps what she thought she saw in the warehouse was not what she actually saw.
No, what did you... This is nonsense. What does she suggest they might have seen?
Maybe she saw an emergency tracheotomy because Elodie was choking and Lance was trying to save her.
No, she was tied. Yeah, it's just... Bill.
And then she was wrapped in cling film.
Yeah, it's just...
Bubble wrap.
Rubbish.
But Jonathan entertains it, given that it's the middle of the night and he's half asleep, and says maybe she was, or maybe Lance has been keeping quiet to protect somebody else.
Yeah.
Who are we meant to think it is? Constance?
Perhaps, yeah. Anyway, the next morning, both are alive and awake in bed, but Joey does her back in again.
That's another amusing sound effect as she sits up and then she starts whining about her sore back.
Yeah, demands that Jonathan go and get painkillers for her. And outside, Jonathan is looking up at the attic when Glenn walks over, and Jonathan tells him that they spent the night in the room, but something was obviously different, which he's trying to work out.
This is probably a good time to mention that whole top section of the building is CGI'd.
Is it?
Because the actual building is at Nebworth. It doesn't have that top story.
Right.
So if you watch it on the DVD, there's a little featurette.
Oh,
2 featurettes
interesting.
worth watching.
Well, that answers my question. I think I mentioned that I really liked the look of the house last week, but I wasn't sure if it was a matte painting or CGI, so you're telling me it is.
CGI.
Okay.
And you can find out all about it on the DVD.
I'll be sure to watch that.
An issue I had with this bit, Jonathan doesn't know where that attic is in the building, but in Satan's Chimney we saw him expertly use his mind to map his journey through the dungeon, so he could figure out exactly when he was above the dungeon.
Yeah, but we noted last week he's a little bit off form, a little bit off kilter here with the diary entry, etc.
Out of practice, perhaps. That's what I've written here. Maybe he's out of practice.
Yeah. But he does go on to mention a hypothesis of his that was killed off when he saw the bird that hit the attic window lying on the roof below where it should be. So he thinks it's not that the attic is actually in a different part of the house that he considered.
Well, that was the conclusion he drew when he saw the bird, but now Glenn's information has led him to revisit that theory.
Yes, because he remembers that there's been a number of these kamikaze birds.
Bird strikes, yes.
Yeah, so therefore the one that he saw and thought disproved his theory actually may have been there for a number of days. It's not the same one.
It can be discounted, yes.
Yeah. However, Glenn points out that it doesn't solve the mystery of what went on in the room and where Mina is. Jonathan agrees to this. All it means is that they can't be sure what is underneath the attic.
Yeah. At this point, Jonathan asks for the painkillers for Joey, and Glenn says he'll sort something out. But a flashback leads Jonathan to
His eureka moment.
both a eureka moment and a bit of panic, I might suggest.
Yeah, and what does he do?
Well, he thinks back to the theatre when Joey hurt her back and said she would need a nice long bath.
Yes.
And he makes the connection with the stone that Constance saw her father pick up, and concludes that perhaps it wasn't what happened in the night, but what happened in the morning that made these people vanish.
So at this, they both sprint up to Joey, who we see is lowering herself into the bath. And what happens?
Well, the bath starts to give way, and she's slid down into a tank of water full of dead bodies.
Yeah, it opens quite slowly. I would have thought you could have put your arms out and prevented yourself from falling down. You'd immediately grabbed onto one side.
You would think.
Yeah.
But she can't.
There's been 7 or so people that's happened to.
Yeah.
It would only take one of them to
Save
grab
himself,
on, and then you would find out exactly what happened. So all of these people have been unable to prevent themselves.
Well, maybe they're all soapy.
Yeah,
They can't grab anything, they slip off. We see a fully naked Joey slide down into the tank.
Yeah, I walked in and you with that paused at one
That was a
point.
coincidence.
Was it? You were just you're making a cup of tea?
Well, it's actually the dead bodies. I really liked the work with the dead bodies. I thought that was
okay.
quite...
Jimmy Savile-esque?
Well, no.
Oh,
I just thought that the look of the dead body, although it's a completely unrealistic, surely in the 50 years they would have decomposed a bit more and maybe just been bones by this stage.
Yeah. But alongside those semi-decomposed bodies, unfortunately, who do we meet?
Mina.
Yeah.
And she tells Joey, "Run to the surface, Joey."
The mechanism starts to close the bath just as Jonathan and Glenn rush in the nick of time to pull her to safety.
Yes, Jonathan's just kind of floundering and Glenn says, "Grab her arm." So he does the obvious thing, pulls her out in a relieved and distraught Joey. Also, what, would that not stink? Surely you would be able to smell it in that little bathroom. I mean, you've heard about the murders where bodies get put in water tanks and stuff and the whole hotel begins to smell funny, and yeah, I think that doesn't add up.
No. Downstairs, with a now composed Joey beside him, Jonathan talks to Constance about this new revelation.
I think we all knew this house contained some pretty dark secrets. Maybe not as dark as that. Basically a fairly massive concealed water tank underneath an attic that's not where we thought it was. Stairs to the real one, God knows, blocked up probably a long time ago. And beneath the bath, a very efficient rig of pulleys and counterweights. Pressure sensitive, we can assume, that respond to the weight of a body by tipping it out, and then closing up again. You feel the Hoover Dam was an engineering breeze next to that one. But as you know well enough, that's the very reason these things work. There's a level of artifice that common sense just won't tolerate. Something so enduring and elaborate, suddenly demonic possession seems a lot more plausible. That gooey ectoplasm, it's fairly safe to say, was preset to drip all over Mencken as he lay in the bed that night, just to make doubly sure he's going to want to freshen up in the morning. The fact that it's now harbouring dead insects may well have had a similar effect on your friend. I don't know how she felt about spiders at all, but...
They actually had acting spiders that they used in this episode.
Trained?
Yeah, with handlers. I think the actress who played Mina actually had one of them on her and did not enjoy the experience.
Did they have equity cards?
Almost certainly. 8 of them, one for each hand. Do spiders have hands?
No.
Okay, feet, just all feet.
Moving on, Constance accepts that the small pebble was in fact a piece of soap that Gessler pocketed, and gathering herself has a revelation of her own.
Yes, she's heard from the police with breaking news. There's a video of Elodie subsequent to the apparent murder, and she's perfectly fine.
Yeah, showing her alive at 8 AM that morning. So later, a courier delivers a CD containing the supposed proof. It has camcorder footage from some tourists feeding ducks in the park, who then bump into Elodie. There's so many issues here, I think, regards to this being proof.
Yeah.
I mean, not least just basic editing and jiggery-pokery.
Well, that's the easy one.
Yeah.
Changing the date and time. But the big issue for Jonathan and Joey is that it's got that day's newspaper in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to fake.
Yeah, I mean, back then it would have been. These days you could put in...
Digitally adjust it, yeah.
Joey claims that it isn't possible, but a resolute Constance states that it is irrefutable. Outside, a confused Joey now admits to being out of her depth, especially as Elodie's death was confirmed by Nicola the nurse in the warehouse.
Yeah, they get into Joey's car and Jonathan takes a look at the newspaper again and his gaze lingers on page 3.
Doesn't it always? Apparently the clue has something to do with a motorway development, David Hockney, who is advertised in print and points him towards an extremely daring piece of misdirection, which Jonathan describes as being utterly amazing.
I think the Hockney clue is a bit obscure.
Yeah. It wasn't, I mean, that wasn't really a clue at all, was it?
No. But even for the viewing audience.
Mm-hmm. He is happy to share this new insight with Joey, but says that first they need to get down to the police station ASAP.
In silence, obviously.
Yes. As Gessler is being released without charge. And that's where we head. What do they witness?
They see Gessler being released without charge.
Being picked up in a car by an unseen driver, which they follow to a house in a wooded area and watch as he enters with a cloaked female.
Surely they would have clocked them on that country road.
Yes.
There's only 2 cars for miles.
Yeah.
Anyway.
They then hear what?
They see the curtains be drawn and then they hear a woman screaming and they run from the car to the house.
To find a fairly graphic battering that she is receiving around the head with a statue from Gessler.
Absolutely.
So seeing Jonathan, he flees through another door as they break in to find the victim is...
Well, it's one that you might not have picked up on immediately. She was in the episode earlier in part 1 at the party.
Yes, Delia Gunning, she was the one who gave him a gift of some honey.
Yes, and that, I think at this stage, Jonathan makes the connection when he looks out to the garden and sees a set of beehives.
Indeed. At the hospital, Delia's on the mend, and Joey listens as Jonathan states as fact that Gessler murdered Elodie in the warehouse, as he had always planned to, after staging the kidnap based probably on his genetics.
That's questionable.
Yeah, I don't think Jonathan can assert to that with any great degree of... I mean, just because your father or your grandfather or whoever it is.
Yeah, if that was true, it'd be really easy to catch all the killers in advance, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there'd also be an awful lot of murderous Germans around.
Yeah, and various other strains.
Yeah.
Jonathan's quite excited to have a second chance in the episode to explain it all.
Yes. He goes on to mention that he thinks that Gessler was a type of narcissist or egotist who would disregard any help offered to him in his cunning plans. And we see the role that Delia played.
Someone who might come along and pick up that money in the road. And someone who somehow managed to rig up a video that appeared to contradict the evidence of 3 independent witnesses. Of course, he never expected to be caught in the act like that. That footage was always part of a carefully planned insurance policy. Kidnapped victims caught on camera taking a quiet stroll in the park. Even if she never turns up again, it'd be hard to put a murder case together. Maybe we'd all warmed to the idea that she'd faked it with Glenn so the two of them could do a runner together. But how was it done? Grabbing a shot one morning before she goes missing, if you know where she's going to be, it's easily arranged. But how do we explain that newspaper that was conveniently being read in the background? A daily paper with up-to-the-minute news that couldn't even have existed until first thing this morning. Or could it? Suppose you know exactly what's going to be on the front page of that paper more than a week beforehand. Because you're the person who's going to design it. Only question then is, how could you possibly know what the big story is going to be that day? Answer, because you're going to create it yourself.
So through flashback, we see how she did in fact create the story. Tell us about it.
Yeah, she's in a council meeting and she's got a case full of bees and she roasts them and then leaves.
Yeah, I mean, she's a beekeeper. It might be well known that she's a beekeeper.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty obvious. She's handing honey out at all the local events. Anyway. I suppose, though, when she came back to take photographs and stuff, she could collect her case and
put them back in. Come on, lads. So yeah, as editor of the local paper, we see that her right the front page pertaining to the story of this disruption at the council meeting.
And Jonathan notes that the story about the motorway on page 3 would have been a more natural lead. Obviously, as a trained journalist, he would know that. And he then jumps to a whole bunch of additional conclusions.
Well, she admits that the tourist had been paid off. Tourist in the video that was.
Yeah. Before
confirming that, it's an old one this, isn't it, that the bad guy, Gessler, told her that he loved her. She's being used, emotionally manipulated.
It's a shame for her.
Oh, terrible. And she still has no sympathy for Elodie, who she saw as a betrayer and someone who knew about his secrets that could ruin his career. What secret? What am I missing here?
His tricks, how they all work.
No, she's a magician's assistant. Everyone knows.
There's lots of them.
You go on the internet.
No, but this is just what Lance told the woman. It's not fact.
No, I know, but if you're her, you're thinking, what tricks? Like sawing the woman in half, etc. There's nothing, you can find out all of these. There's even back then, this is what, 2009 now? 15 years before that, you had these magicians programs, you know, the unmasked, behind the magician's secret and all this sort of stuff. Everyone knew.
Jonathan logically makes the continued point that if Elodie had to go, then surely so did Delia.
Yes, well that's what I said earlier about him disregarding any help.
Yeah, or disposing with.
Yeah.
Hence the accident on the stairs. I'm quite surprised. We see the reenactment, or not reenactment, the memory of this attack, that she was not knocked out, at least, if not killed by these blows.
Yes, you hear a thud. Yes, she should have sustained massive head injuries. It looked as if she just bumped it slightly.
But she's really weak. He's fine. He's got wee noodle arms and he's
But no, you're right. When I watched it, you're thinking there was about 4 or 5 crushing blows to the head.
Yeah. There's no way she'd just have a wee scratch in her forehead. Anyway, she's sad now because she's going to jail.
She is. Back at Metropolis, they return to the gardens to speak with Glenn and Constance, who have both heard the news and have a bonfire on the go.
Yes, and we hear a stupid story about the painting and why Constance has been breadcrumbing this through the episode, and we can now put the pieces together.
Okay, tell us about it.
There was when she was a young woman in Germany, there was staying with a family member, there was a fire, and she braved the fire and had to choose between saving the painting and saving her elderly relative.
Was it not her father?
Was it her father?
No, her father.
No, her father's
died.
already dead.
Dead, yes,
another,
okay.
Another relative in a wheelchair. So she saves the painting and watches the old man burn to death. And hence we got the comments earlier on about, you can't put a value on human life and stuff about the painting as well. And probably why it was locked away up in an attic as well, I would imagine.
She sees everything that has subsequently happened in her life as a punishment from God for her obsession with her son and his career, and not noticing the fact that he or she had bred a monster.
Yes, and now Glenn introduces the painting to the fire.
We see it smoulder and
melt
and burn. Quite nice.
Continues to grin.
It does, yeah. Cheeky little man.
We're up an alley.
The cops have found Gessler's car with a hose pipe leading from the back into his mouth.
Yeah, and it's all iced up. Although apparently they filmed it in July and it's just icing sugar.
Okay, he's dead.
Yeah, there's not much more to say about it.
There's not, no.
He just killed himself. It's just, they could just have had someone say it. Yeah. Anyway.
We finish up at a restaurant.
Yes, Adam, Joey and Jonathan arrive and await their partners.
Yes, they're waiting on Candy, Alec and Nicola.
Yes. Adam makes an actually quite insightful comment about the symmetry of the grinning man with pipe in his mouth, and Lance dying with a pipe in his mouth.
Yes, it was quite smart.
It's a bit brutal, but yes.
He's quite pleased to hear of the mystery and how Joey and Jonathan solved it, and she offers him a business opportunity.
Yeah, sponsorship on her website. That'll never catch on.
No, I think she says you'll get a new funky demographic or something. I don't know.
People who like her work.
Yeah, and Jonathan at this point jumps in and says, "Yeah, I think he would, usually be quite interested. However,
he's put all his money in this 3D porn, but he's a bit smug about this because he's got one up on Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, he bullishly produces his porn contract that supposedly gives him 20% on every title sold." Until Jonathan points out what?
Well, it's not signed. So they've signed it with vanishing ink because they've been conning him all along. I would think that's illegal and he could probably get his money back.
Yeah, but not if they've disappeared with it.
Well, if they've disappeared, then that would be harder.
Well, I think they have. They're not turning up. Candy was not the dumb blonde that he thought. In fact, she was exactly what he deserved.
Exactly, yes.
He's been taught a lesson there, not to judge a book by its cover.
I wonder if he'll learn that lesson.
Don't think he will.
No. He realises at this point, belatedly, that she's definitely not coming.
And it is not just Candy who's a no-show.
No.
That seemed a bit tacked on.
Alec phones. It seems like they had him in filming the phone calls all at once, and the woman who plays Nicola happened to be in that day.
Yeah.
And they put this one together. Basically, he is not in town. He's still in Miami. Surely he would have mentioned that earlier.
And he's not alone.
He's not alone. He's breaking up with Joy because he's met Nicola, who's flown herself out there to see him.
Yeah, so Nicola caught a glimpse of him on the phone when they were at the theatre.
Yeah. Yeah. And Vogue magazine told her to act on impulse.
Yeah, so she's hopped on a flight and they're now an item.
Yes. Destiny or something. That wouldn't happen.
No.
For start, he would think this woman's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's in Miami with, I'm sure, lots of bikini-clad lovelies. He's not short of...
I mean, it's obvious from his calls that he's not that into Joey. That he's not... Yeah. Although he did make the effort to call, but he's not bothering about coming back.
Yeah, he's always a bit of a creepy enemy. Nicola was a pain in the backside, so I think they're better off without them.
Definitely. I did like Nicola saying they'll laugh about it in the future.
Yeah. Well, that's us then. Part 2 of The Grinning Man.
Yes.
I enjoyed it.
Very much. It's possibly my favourite, certainly so far.
Yeah, Joey's very good.
I think the character's a good foil for Jonathan as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Do you have any interest in hearing about some deleted scenes?
I do. Go for it.
Okay, so some of these relate to part 1, and at least one of them explains something I was asking about last week. The first one, we can see when it came out, there's more from Do you remember when Mina and Joey met in the bar and then it cut to their drive?
Yes.
Okay, so there's an extra bit. That conversation in the bar continues. Joey's going to see Mina's play, and Mina warns her to be careful because there's a distressing rape scene. And it cuts to a play where she's being raped by a man dressed as a bull in an animal costume. And then cuts to the car where they're discussing it, and they say they think they've gone too far down the road. And that would obviously then lead into the breakdown.
Okay.
You've then got one in Glenn's car where he phones Lance to say they're coming, which is something we asked about, or I asked about last week, wondering how did Lance know they were coming. And at this point, Joey spots the body in the boot and starts to freak out.
Right.
And then is calmed down. Well, before she's calmed down, Lance says she's seen something she wasn't supposed to. And then she sees Glenn lift the mannequin out and
I can see why that would have been cut. It wasn't necessary.
There's a very brief conversation in the pub garden between Jonathan and Nicola where she refers to men liking to stick their faces into all different parts of women. I don't know what that was all about. And on the porn set, Candy and Adam, he does a demonstration of the pulse stopping and she's very impressed.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. But again, not scenes that you can see why they've been cut out for time.
But you can understand then the bit with the phone call.
Yes.
Explains quite a bit.
Definitely. Okay, stars this week. Who did we not mention last week? We've got Kieran McMenamin, played Glenn, born in 1975. You may have seen him in The Young Person's Guide to Becoming a Rock Star, Pulling Moves, True Dare Kiss, 32, Brinkburn Street or Primeval. He has a BA in acting from RSAMD, which is the Scottish equivalent of RADA.
Yeah, it's now the Conservatoire.
It is. I think it's very highly regarded.
I think so.
He might have been cutting about at the same time as us, around about there, in a pub or two.
No doubt.
Whilst there, he won the gold medal in 1998 and has just released last year his debut novel, Skin Town.
Is it any good?
Not read it. I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
Elodie was played by Jenna Harrison. She was born in 1981 and has appeared in Telling Lies, Casualty, Dinotopia, My Brother Tom, and Cambridge Spies. Constance was portrayed by Judy Parfitt. Born in 1935, she has been in Girl with the Pearl Earring, Call the Midwife, Up the Woman, Little Dorrit, ER, Funland, The Charmings, Murder She Wrote, Crown Court, and Z-Cars, amongst lots of other things. But she was a very highly regarded, or is a very highly regarded theatre stage actress.
It's a heck of a career, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's done quite a lot in Americans. I think she was in 10 or 12 episodes of ER, not just like a one-off non-speaking part.
I think that's where I recognise her from.
Yeah. She played Nicole Williamson's mother now. Do you remember Nicole Williamson?
Yes, with the dogs.
With the dogs, yes.
Dial a Murder.
How to Dial a Murder in Columbo, and came from my hometown, yes. Yeah. One of
Scotland's murder capital.
Yes. So she played his mother in Hamlet, despite only being 10 months older. It's a bit of a...
That's going to be a blow.
Yeah. And finally, Delia Gunning was played by Julia Ford, who was born in 1963 and has been in The Practice, Casualty, Insiders, Island at War, Best Friends, The Street, Shameless, The Bill, Frankie and Happy Valley. In terms of trivia, what do I have? Not a lot here. Apparently it was David Rennick's wife's suggestion that Sheridan Smith be cast as the sidekick.
Well, a very good idea it was.
And the painting, if you're interested, isn't a real wash. A lot of people didn't know where it was from, but the fact that he's smoking, I'm thinking Bosch's time tobacco hadn't actually made it across to these parts or to Holland, so they confirmed that it wasn't genuine.
Okay.
Well, we'll do a quick episode review.
Double episode review.
Motive.
For which crime?
Well, for Lance Gessler.
Generally, his motive was to take revenge on Elodie for leaving him.
Yes, being genetically evil.
Yes.
Yes, and obviously the killing of, attempted murder of Delia was to tie up loose ends.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Clues, quite a lot here of the 2 episodes we've covered. The painting, the birds, the dead flies, the ectoplasm, the newspaper cuttings, the Latin inscriptions.
Well, these are clues to the other crime.
They're all tied up. Constance's random utterances, the blood at the foot of the rope, seeing Gessler kill Elodie is a bit of a clue. the little bit of soap, the ladder hypotenuse, the local newspaper article, and the video itself. Probably lots of other things. But
seeing the wedding.
Seeing the
aftermath of the wedding.
Gotcha this week.
They saw it happen.
Saw it happen, and also Jonathan seeing Delia have her head smashed in.
Yeah, again, witnessed directly. Yeah.
And guilt is non-applicable because he is dead.
Yes, doesn't matter if he's guilty or not.
No, I think he would be found guilty if we...
I suspect so.
Yep. Okay, next time we've got the Judas Tree. It's a 90-minuter.
Go for it all in a winner.
One podcast episode, yeah.
Excellent.
We'll brave it out. Till then.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.